Pope Francis reaffirms Catholic refusal to allow same-sex marriage. This is one of those news stories where I'm like, sometimes I feel like people have wishful thinking to think that anything else is going to be the case. But, this was a major news story, so we're going to cover it. On September 15th, in a media pool interview, the Catholic Pontiff once again issued a firm stance against same sex marriage, stating that marriage is a sacrament which the Church doesn't have the power to change. However, he stated that he is supportive of civil unions, adding that governments, quote, have the possibility to give them, meaning same-sex couples, safety, stability, and inheritance. Pope Francis also said that he does not support discrimination against the LGBT community, despite his lack of support for same-sex marriage. In March of this year, Pope Francis, through a Vatican statement, made it clear to the disappointment of many pro-LGBT Catholics that the Church cannot bless same-sex marriage. The response was a decisive one word, quote, negative.
I just want to thank Pope Francis because we were under this, he was a threat into making Christianity or the Catholic faith look good to some extent. Like people were like, well, maybe they're okay. Look at this cute little Pope. He looks like a grandpa. Oh, and he's so sweet and friendly. Maybe there's hope for religion. Maybe it's not. Maybe other religious leaders should look at the Pope and like take notes. Not all religious organizations have to be bad. This is how it started, right? And I was like, no, stop, no. Like, what are you guys doing? This is like just a PR front of this harmful and very extremely dangerous ideology. Please stop falling for it. So it was just about time, I guess, for more people to realize, like, yeah, like, no, you shouldn't have any hope for religion. Religion sucks, and these are their views, and they're holding us back. And it's amazing how a lot of people want to give credit or congratulate religious leaders or institutions for being decades behind the rest of us when it comes to progress. And even when they catch up, they're like, maybe gay people, not all bad. Yeah, oh my God, so tolerant. Like, okay, wow. Like, no, we're still against giving them their rights, but we're not against abusing them. Wow, oh my God, give all the cookies to the Vatican. Amazing. They're not against like hating on, discriminating against gay people. I mean, they say that, but they still don't want to give them their rights. But apparently we need to like guys, the time that we congratulate people for not being having the worst garbage views is over, right? Like you can't just be like congratulating people for coming out of the dark ages and being only 50 years behind the rest of us. That's not grounds for congratulations. You should be like, they're just trying to survive. And you should see it, that the fact that every time that they are dragged kicking and screaming to just make a little bit of a progress, it's not because these are good institutions that care about human beings. It's because if they don't, they will become irrelevant. You have to still address the fact that they're still behind the rest of us and they're not helping us move forward. Just if we manage to drag them behind kicking and screaming, that doesn't mean that they're a source of progress. That should indicate that they're actually holding us back. Every single progress that they make, given how far behind the rest of us they are, should not be a sign of hope for you that maybe these religious institutions or these religious leaders could be used as a form of leadership to move society forward. No. The only thing that is in their interest is for them to not lose all relevancy. And given how far behind they are, it means that they have their hook. They're still like, they have one foot in the dark ages and the rest of them is like being forced to move forward, but they have the hooks in society and they're making progress for the rest of us harder. They're making it harder for us to move forward. But go on, Sus.
Well, like I was saying, like I don't know what people are expecting from Pope Francis. Like, when he became the Pope, there was a lot of hope because he was a very big diversion from the previous Pope, Pope Benedict XVI, who was very grandiose in some ways, used a lot of more of the jewelry and stuff. And if you just see a side-by-side picture, like Pope Francis took his name from Pope Francis of Assisi, like notably more humble, more aesthetically reserved, and more focused on the poor, seemingly. And in contrast to those who have came before him, his stance supporting civil unions is actually considerably more progressive, possibly the most progressive of stance yet. Okay, but that is as good as it is going to get, and people shouldn't expect otherwise, because, to quote Pope Francis, he said, quote, "I have spoken clearly about this. No, marriage is a sacrament. Marriage is a sacrament. The church doesn't have the power to change sacraments. It's as our Lord established." So he's saying God gave us these sacraments. Marriage is a sacrament between a man and a woman. We are a man-made institution. I mean, that, claims to be God's institution, but still, we are not the Lord. We do not have the power to change sacraments. So this isn't going to change. So I really don't know what people are expecting. I think obviously, I agree with everything that Armin has just previously said. However, him continuing to reiterate that this doesn't mean that you should hate, of course, I'm going to say, yes, please. I do like that encouragement as much as possible. But people expecting anything different from Pope Francis because he's the quote-unquote hippie pope is completely delusional. Yeah, it's that's kind of something a frustration I have with like very progressive, usually like North American or Western Catholics. It's like they don't know what the catechism entails. Armin?
All right, so let me just clarify a few things. Yeah, so when people say what do you expect is the Catholic Church, that's my point, right? The hope should not be the push should not be for the Catholic Church to change their stance on this. The push should be for the Catholic Church to become more and more irrelevant. You shouldn't be like, that should be. So yeah, I have an issue with some progressive thinking, like hoping that maybe like when the Catholic Church will allow same-sex marriage. I mean, even if that is possible, maybe in 100 years or whatever, that should not be our activism. Our activism should be that less people are Catholic, or even people who are Catholic, they are less influenced by Catholic ideology. You know what I mean? So that should be what the push is. And also, when we're saying like, yeah, this Pope is becoming more and more progressive, yeah, relative to the Pope before it, that is true. But again, I feel like we shouldn't fall for that. That shouldn't give us hope that religion could be used as a source of good, because even if religion is used as a source of good, religion comes as a package with methodology and practices and teachings that are extremely dangerous. Every time religion is used, there are examples of religions being used as a source of good. There were alternative ways of you doing that wouldn't be promoting such a harmful and dangerous ideology, right? So is this Pope more progressive than the one before it? Yes. Should you fall for this? Should you now endorse the Catholic Church? No. Should you acknowledge that this is more progressive? Yeah, because it's reality. But that's only because the church is being forced to. That should not make us endorse the church. That should not make us stop being against the Catholic Church. That's my point.
Yes, right? I completely agree. I was providing the context of the precedent before, just so people understand in context the attitudes and how this is a shift in many ways. But secularity is saying, good point, Susanna. We have to at least highlight the good part, even if it's so far behind. I want to kind of like clarify something. So when I'm saying I'm glad that he supports civil unions because in context, this is so much more progressive, or I'm glad that he's reiterating this doesn't mean condemning homosexual people, etc. I'm not talking about this as a way to praise the Pope, but I do want to bring that up because I understand that this does influence people, and I do desire for more people to be influenced towards less homophobia. Does that make sense? So I'm not congratulating him for just having like the barest of a acceptable opinion, but I'm hopeful that reiterating this will make the lives of people, especially in heavily Catholic countries, better. Does that make sense?
That makes complete sense. And I think I have an analogy that might help. I don't know. If you think of society as let's say a woman that has been taken hostage into someone's basement, right? And the person who has taken her captive is not feeding her. She's starving, right? And she's like trapped in this man's dungeon under his house. But now all of a sudden he changes his ways and goes from not feeding her to all of a sudden preparing great meals for her, feeding her, giving her like expensive food, constantly coming down here, giving her, not just water, but like any drink that she wants, right? And we could acknowledge that her situation improved. She used to starve, and now she has food, okay? But are we now going to congratulate this man that just had kidnapped this woman and is holding her in her dungeon and abusing her in different ways, continuing, but now he's feeding her? Would we not endorse trying to get this woman out of this dungeon completely? Would we not be fighting against, if we knew about this man, would we not be fighting against him or try to like completely defeat this person? And I'm not going to use words that YouTube might take differently, but you know what I'm referring to. Like, yeah, no, we're not going to congratulate this person, and we still want to free society from something so destructive, right? That's how I see it. That's how I see the influence of religion. And that's how I look at the progress that is being made. Does that help as an analogy? I don't know. Should I use that as an analogy? I think it helps people.
Yeah, totally makes sense.
Yeah. Anyways, we're on the same page on a lot of these things.
Well, good. We work together very closely. I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say something else. I forgot. Oh, no, this is very important. One last point. Okay. So you said that Pope Francis also said that he does not support discrimination against LGBT community, correct?
Condemning them. They're still children of God.
Oh, no. Let's just focus on what I want to say. Okay. So he's condemned discrimination against the LGBT community. Is that correct?
Broadly, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'll say.
I just want to. Yeah, you're making this very difficult right now. Okay, so what I have in the summary is Pope Francis also said that he does not support discrimination against the LGBT community. I just want to highlight that part because he is discriminating himself against the LGBT community. Denying the same rights to the LGBT community, denying them marriage rights just like everybody else, is discrimination against the LGBT community. So don't fall for it. Don't, just because the Pope is telling you that he's against discrimination against the LGBT community, don't be like, oh, great, their stance is now they're against discrimination. They are endorsing discrimination. Denying the same rights that straight people have is discrimination. So again, you can see the hypocrisy here. Their language is that they're against discrimination while not endorsing marriage for gay people. So yes. I just wanted to highlight that. Okay.
I was going to be nitpicky, but yes.
Yes.
Because that's what we do here. Hey guys, if you're a fan of blasphemy and sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our blasphemous art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.